Happy Independence Day, everyone! And today, we are interviewing Arrman Kapoor, a previous member of Team USA Debate. Literally just like a coincidence that we ended up interviewing him on Independence Day. But nonetheless, this is going to be an exciting interview, so stick to the end. We're repping USA as well, and I'm going to list out every accomplishment that Arrman has. It is so much that I have to just bring out my computer just to read them all. Okay, so this is genuinely crazy, but Arrman was a finalist at the NSDA National Tournament. He was a finalist at the most prestigious high school speech and debate tournament in the country, the Tournament of Champions. He was a champion of the Texas Forensics State Championship, and he qualified for all of these tournaments 4 times in a row. He also amassed 23 bids to the Tournament of Champions, which meant he placed in 23 major national level tournaments throughout his 4 years, and he was a prestigious member of the Team USA Debate representing world schools across the world. And the cherry on top, with all these accomplishments, Arrman received admission into Cornell University and the University of Texas at Austin. He is genuinely one of the best debaters the activity has ever seen. Me and Arrman actually prepped together in my junior year of high school, and he is one of the smartest and kindest people I know. So let's welcome Arrman Kapoor to the YouTube channel today. Okay, cool. Arrman, so this is just gonna be rapid fire questions, and just give me like whatever detailed answer you can give me for all of them. Cool.
Gotcha.
So can you tell the audience a little bit about how you got interested in debate and the origins of your debate career?
Yeah, so I actually started in interp, so that's like the more acting focused events. So I was doing like dramatic interp and humorous interp and storytelling and stuff. But the person who ended up being my debate partner, we were on the same bus route in middle school, and so we sat together every day. And he was like super big into debate at this point. He had started in 6th grade. He was like the phenom of like the middle school circuit, if you can believe. And like everybody knew about Anuj. So, you know, we kind of talk about our experiences. So he told me about PF and his topics and his rounds and such, and like arguments he'd come up with or ones they didn't know how to respond to. And I tell him about, you know, my pieces and stuff. Like we weren't really as interested in each other's events in terms of doing them, but like we didn't mind hearing about them. And that's how we kind of became friends. And then Anuj's partner at the time was a year older than him. So going into 8th grade, Anuj's partner was going into high school. And so I guess we had talked enough about debate at that point to where Anuj was like, yeah, like this kid probably, you know, maybe knows a few things or could figure out a few things. So he asked if I wanted to do debate with him. So I picked up like the actual debate class, started doing PF in 8th grade. And then, you know, it kind of went from there. We were debating together for like 5 years. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you really set it off after that, huh? But
yeah, 100%.
Sorry for the brief intermission in the video, but if you want to be a great debater just like Arrman is, check the link in the description below for Prep and Pitch Academy. I'm taking free consultations for the rest of the year, and also pre-order our courses for both Public Forum and World Schools Debate today. Thank you, everyone, and now back to the video. Awesome, yeah. So if you had to start your debate career over from scratch, what would you do differently to improve faster?
I think I would get more efficient at doing prep. So debate is obviously very big on, you know, reading up on current events and knowing about the world. But part of the research component of the activity is that you have to format your evidence very specifically. You have to be able to read direct quotes and things like that. And, you know, I started kind of really contributing to the prep efforts my sophomore year. Freshman year, honestly, I was still kind of picking up some of the ropes of high school debate. But I think if I had to go back, I would kind of take all the things I picked up now about how to make the prep process a little bit more efficient. You know, like inevitably, a bunch of smart people in debate, there are like little keyboard shortcuts, there are little apps you can download, extensions you can get in Chrome and such that make these things a lot quicker. So I feel like if I had known all of those things, or at least if I had bothered to like look into them and implement them going back to like sophomore year, I probably would have saved like half the time I spent on prep. But you know, it's okay. Like at least like for whatever prep I do now when I coach students or like I'm teaching students, at least it's efficient now. And now I care about it a little bit more because debate is not as big of a time commitment as it used to be for me in high school. So if there was a time for it to be more efficient, I'm glad that it's now, so it's not interfering with school. But I probably would have gotten a little bit more efficient in hindsight.
That sounds really cool. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about like the prep stuff? Like what makes something more efficient for prep?
You want to have direct quotes to be able to respond to other people's arguments, like a few common responses to what are going to be the quote unquote stock arguments of the topic. So that's kind of where you want to be prepared. In terms of like things to make it more efficient, whether you're a Microsoft Word user or like Google Docs user, Google Docs has like little Chrome extensions that can, fetch like an author qualification for you. It can auto like create a citation for you when you go onto a website. They can find information on the author or like format certain things. Word has this very popular application called Verbatim. It was created like a while ago for other events, but kind of morphed its way over to PF because everyone wants to be more efficient. And so that kind of does some similar things. So kind of regardless of what you use, there are little things that you can implement to make the process a lot more efficient. And eventually I picked them up, but probably would have wanted to do so at the outset.
Awesome. Yeah. So what's some advice you would give for students like just starting out debate, just generally?
Yeah. I would say, okay, this will sound a bit vague at first, but I'll clarify. Maximize every dollar you put into the activity. Debate is obviously very expensive. And, the amount that you spend on debate looks different for every person. I get that, right? Some people can go to more tournaments or less tournaments. Some people can, pay for a private coach or not. Some people can go to summer debate camp or not. I get that it looks different for everybody, but whatever it does look like for you in terms of how much you spend on debate, maximize all that money. So let's say you're going to camp for the summer. Debate camp is like a 2-week intensive thing. And in the evenings, for example, you have access to what's called office hours, right? All of the instructors are available, even if they're not the instructors that lead your lab or the ones that are kind of focused towards teaching you. You can still go talk to anybody about almost any skill that you want to pick up. I kind of see a lot of kids, they see office hours as this like, oh, it's there, but I'm not really going to go. Like, I don't want to be seen as like a nerd going to office hours every day and asking questions. I mean, like, it's debate. Like, you kind of already picked up like a quote unquote nerdier activity, right? So if you're already going to spend a decent amount of money on camp and you're not kind of using office hours, for example, every day, and maximizing the time you have to learn from people and pick up new skills, then I feel like you're not really valuing all the money that's going into debate. And like other examples, right? Even if you're someone who just competes at a few tournaments every year and doesn't add on all the bells and whistles, I get that. Every time that you're receiving feedback from a judge, if you hear something that doesn't make sense, which like there's a chance that this person might be more or less experienced than you or have a different take on life than you, ask them for clarification. Like, there should be no reason that someone finishes giving their comments on how they think you debated and you don't understand fully what they mean by certain things, because you have access to them to clarify. Like, they are happy to give you more insight because they have chosen to be paid and like volunteer their time to come and judge your rounds for the weekend. So regardless of what your expenditures on debate look like, make sure that you're maximizing the money that you put in, and always kind of think about it as like, there are people who are maybe not always better than you, but maybe they're more knowledgeable on a certain thing or they're more experienced. Treat every single opportunity like a learning opportunity and just maximize the questions and support and help that you're getting out of people. Because like, people are in debate still, right, when they're in college or even older than that, in order to kind of support the next generation of debaters. So just take advantage of the resources that you have and maximize that money that you put in.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Arrman, for that. So looking back, what was your favorite debate round and overall tournament, and like, why did that stand out to you?
I think my favorite round and tournament are one and the same. My junior year at the Texas State debate tournament, it's called TFA State, like Texas Forensics Association, and that was the favorite tournament of mine because we won that tournament without dropping a ballot. So what that means is like, you have to get through a certain number of prelims. If you do good enough in prelims, you qualify to elims, and then you go through the elims until you get to the finals. And we had like a perfect like win-loss record, you could say, throughout all those rounds. But I think the bigger reason that it stood out to me was because TFA State was a tournament that I attended for the first time as a freshman, and back then it seemed so daunting. I was just there knowing like, I'm not going to qualify the elim rounds. I might not even do too well in prelims. But I'm just going to learn, and look at all these teams who I know are better than me and see what I can figure out from them to hopefully be in their place one day. So junior year, being able to win the tournament was a very big deal in that regard. And in semis, it was super cool because there was this team, both of these two kids, like, I'm good friends with today. I love them both, from Seven Lakes in Katy near Houston. They had beaten us like 4 times in a row that year. I don't know what exactly it was. The rounds were always close, but every time we debated them, we kind of ended up falling just short. And that was the one round where we finally put it together. We had a strategy that we liked, that we thought would maybe take advantage of what they expected from us and kind of give them something a little bit different. And so whatever strategy we cooked up ended up working. So that was really satisfying in a number of ways. So yeah, TFA semis that year was my favorite round. And then I'd say TFA overall was my favorite tournament over the years. Plus, like, it was nice, to be relatively close to home, to have like most of the kids on the Plano team there, and like I got to, be home in like less than 24 hours and tell my parents all about it. So that was nice.
Yeah, I remember that vividly back in my sophomore year. It was actually so legendary. But so in that same direction, what separates the good debaters from the truly great debaters? Do you think it's like the talent, the work ethic, the preparation, the mindset, or is it like something else entirely?
I think it's all mentality. I think people have this misconception that prepping more helps you win more rounds. I think things like prep, there's a certain amount that you have to do to be successful, right? But there is not this like linear relationship between doing more and doing better. I think something that kind of gets a lot of younger debaters down in their earlier years and prevents them from kind of being as successful as they could be earlier on is just that they go into rounds, they get their pairing, and they see a team that they think is better than them. So the second that they get the pairing, they kind of start wallowing. They're like, I'm so unlucky to get this pairing. Why couldn't I get this person's pairing? They have such an easy pairing this round. I guess I'm going to have to pencil in a loss and then go figure out how can I piece together a winning record out of the remaining rounds, right? And that was kind of a mentality that I had in certain places in my sophomore year. It was like the first year that we were really competing on the national circuit. And, we obviously ended up debating a lot of really good teams throughout the year. And Anuj would kind of see this from me at some point at the start of the year. He'd see me kind of look at a really good pairing and get down a little bit. And he phrased it really well. He was like, what is the absolute worst thing that could happen from this round? Like, we lose, we probably debate decently. Maybe we debate well and still lose, but we'll get some feedback. And there are 10 tournaments left for this year and like a bajillion left for the rest of high school, right? If we don't win this tournament this year, if we don't break at this tournament this year, there's always going to be a year after that. And the other thing he said was like, these are all just people. Like, yeah, like some of them are like really, really, really good at debate. Maybe even generationally good at debate. Maybe they beat like every single team that they come across. They're also just like high schoolers, like they also, like scroll Instagram reels for too many hours. They also fail a test every once in a while. So you can't idolize people too much. You can't kind of put people on pedestals because otherwise you not only kind of tend to self-deprecate in terms of your own abilities, which are what you can control, right? You've put hours into improving them at that point, but you also just psych yourself out of a run before you get in. I think the earlier you can figure out that every person across from you is just another person and they're probably not that different from you and you can beat them on your best day or sometimes even your worst day, the easier it'll be to kind of get over these high pressure situations and not psych yourself out before the actual tough part has started.
Yeah, that's great advice. I fully agree with Arrman on this. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, so Arrman, we're taking a different stance of the questions to the last like 2 questions, but how do you think public forum is different from world schools? And like, how are they similar? And like, what do you like better at the end of the day? Did you like public forum or world schools? I'm not asking which one's like better overall, but what did you think was better for your skill set?
Okay, I think I'll start with that because a large part of my opinion is similarities and differences. I think when I had started doing world schools, I would say that I like public forum more because I was still adjusting and I was kind of steeped in certain habits and expecting certain things. But I think by the time I finished with world schools senior year, I'd say I probably like world more. So in terms of differences, right? They're not really as big as people think. Like, specifically with public forum to worlds. I think some other events, an LD, a Congress, a policy, those can often be like drastically different from worlds, but I think PF is the most similar event. So a couple of differences, obviously like the length of the round. World Schools is about double the length of a PF round. Another difference is that World is not just like a limited prep event, it's a zero prep event. So the second that a previous speech finishes, you're going to want to immediately get up and give yours. And one more difference is that there is a increased emphasis on sort of the historical examples or quote unquote evidence that you can kind of come up with on the spot versus what you're able to research. So I think that's pretty cool. Because one thing that kind of got on me with public forum towards the end of high school was prep. The research process is very fun, but sometimes the formatting stuff and the little intricacies and nuances and things that you have to follow, that can get a little annoying. It was very easy to, for example, cite an article that I looked at for like an English paper because I just had to put, author, last name, date, publishing company. But for PF, you had to underline certain things, highlight certain things, bold certain things, different font sizes. That kind of wears on you over time. And so World was very cool because I could still do the fun part, which was the research. And sometimes, I could even cite my sources a little bit, but I didn't have to have a properly formatted cut card. So it was nice to kind of be able to do the things that I loved about research without having to kind of, jump through hoops. In terms of similarities, there are a ton. A lot of the PF speeches, for example, the PF Final Focus very much mirrors the fourth speech in World Schools, which is called the reply speech, or sometimes called the four. Those two are very similar. The constructive in PF very much mirrors the first speech in Worlds, which is called the one. And I think, the way that PF goes about doing crossfire is at least somewhat similar to how World Schools does, question and answer periods, which is what's called a POI, a point of information, that you can call for in the middle of someone's speech. So a slight difference, but at least the format or the way that it kind of goes back and forth and both teams get a chance, I think is mirrored between the events. So there's a lot that is similar. I think the differences are honestly quite minimal if you kind of can get your mind around to it. And I'd say overall, just because it allowed me to do all the fun things about research without having to spend the extra, often hours or like days collectively formatting my evidence and having cut cards, I think World Schools ended up being my favorite. But I always will say, like, PF was my first event. It's the event that I understand better, the event that I feel more qualified for. I just think World Schools, by the time I got to senior year, and I was like a little tired of some of the evidence prepping burdens, World Schools ended up being more fun.
Yeah. Okay. Got you. Yeah. So for the last question, can you tell the viewers about your Team USA debate experience and how young debaters could also target recruiting for the next cohorts of the team?
Yeah. So I guess I'll clarify real quick. Applications to be on next year's team just closed. But I also will say, like, for anyone who is like still going to be an underclassman next year, you will still be able to apply around this time. So target like early to mid-June, around the time of NSDA Nationals next year. And the process is pretty simple. You record some example videos, you write a few essays, you talk about your accomplishments and kind of give them an idea of who you are as a person, more than just a debater. And there's like an interview process from there. It's super cool. It kind of seems daunting on the outside, but honestly, I think the amount that you have to do for it is not too crazy, especially considering that most people will be on summer break at the time. And I think it kind of allows you to showcase what you picked up in your original event if it was not World. So you're not expected to be, knowing everything about World Schools going into the application. The World Schools kind of requirements in terms of recording the videos, they do their best to make it very simple for you. So I think even if you're not someone who has any World Schools experience, I'd encourage everyone to apply. The learning curve is not as high as you think, even if you don't come from a very similar event like PF. Even if you do something very different, I think World Schools kind of mirrors, what like real world debates look like, if that makes sense, like outside of the structures of high school competitive debate. So I think it's not as bad of a learning curve as it might seem. That being said, my experience, I had so much fun. My first practice was, I think mid-September, maybe late September, my senior year. And this first one was very formal, like everyone's parents were on the meeting because they kind of had to give some clarifications about what the year would look like. Give me one sec. So this one was formal. Yeah, they had to. Everyone's parents were on the meeting. They were doing clarifications. But then, like, the moment all the parents left, and it was just like us 12, kind of sitting there awkwardly because like most of us didn't really know each other, and we'd just been listening to each other's parents talk for the past half an hour. But like 5 minutes in, the coaches kind of threw in some icebreakers, helped everyone get to know each other, and it was so much fun. And it was kind of cool to get closer with these people over the course of, actually meeting them in person throughout the year. Not even like 2-3 weeks after that first online practice, we already had our first in-person tournament of the year. And it was cool because it was in Dallas. So me and Anuj, my PF partner, and then Sherry, she went to Green Hill and she did Worlds throughout high school. We all just got to like receive everyone and host them and tell them about, all the, I won't say all the fun things to do in Dallas. Like, I don't know if it's that fun, but like we got to receive everyone. We didn't have to travel. It was pretty cool. Like Sherry had her car, I had my car. It was awesome. And I really enjoyed it. It was cool to kind of get to travel the world. We went to Croatia, we went to Singapore. We got to, meet some international teams. We were quite close with Team Canada, right? I still keep up with, a couple of those people even today. So I'd say, it really broadened my worldview in terms of what does debate look like in other countries. Like there were kids in other countries who they had picked up debate as early as I had, or even earlier than I have. It just happened to not look the exact same. They were kind of introduced to debate in a different format. Maybe it wasn't introduced to them at school, but rather a club outside of school. Some of these kids have been debating since like elementary school because very, very emphasized their country. Singapore gets their kids started very early, for example, and they're very successful. So it kind of expanded my worldview from a debate perspective, made a lot of great friends, ate some really good food. And like 100%, if you have the chance to apply in World Schools is something that you are currently interested in, or you think you could be interested in, you think you would pick up, I would like wholeheartedly encourage everyone to at least give it a shot. Even if on your first year you don't make it to Team USA, there's like a USA Dev, so like the USA development team. This is designed for younger students. So this means next year you would be a rising junior or younger. This kind of allows you to be taught World Schools throughout the year, continue to develop your skills, and then 1 year later, when you're going into your senior year, maybe then you have a chance to be on USA, and now the coaches know you, you're in the ecosystem, etc. So 100%, whatever that looks like, I would encourage people to apply and give it a shot.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Arrman, for this interview. Every single response you gave was so depthful, and hopefully every new debater that gets introduced to the activity learns from your tips and can also improve to be just as good as you. Okay. Thank you, Arrman, and I'll see you guys.
Thank you for having me.